Joining us now is Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who is talking about this new evidence that uncovered the FBI colluding with Clinton and the investigation that they are planning to launch to expose what is widespread deception and much more. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Sean. And for those who did not catch your segment last night on the Uranium One scandal and the investigations that are still needed there, the special counsel that is still needed there, I would recommend them to go to your website, look that up, because it was very informative.
Well, I appreciate it. I got to give all credit where it's due, and that goes to John Solomon and Sarah Carter. At the end of all of this, I predict they should be getting the Pulitzer Prize for investigative work. Will it happen? I don't know. So the FBI recently released emails in which Hillary was called, in other words, Special Access Program. And also the investigation was called Special by the FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Now, Special Access Program information is the highest level of classification. So I want you to go deep into these two things in particular.
Absolutely, Sean. And, equal treatment under the law is a fundamental value that we cherish as Americans. And what erodes equal treatment under the law is if you give special treatment to some people and you depart from the normal investigative processes. When you and I have pointed out that Hillary Clinton has gotten her own standard throughout her entire career, her own level of review that is less than would be applied to any other public official, she says it's a vast right-wing conspiracy. It's an abuse of power. But now, coming out of the FBI, we are seeing concrete evidence that Hillary Clinton was not treated like every other American. She wasn't even treated like every other person that would be in the Washington, D.C. area accused of a crime. So you've got Andrew McCabe, who's the current deputy director of the FBI, who at the time was working in the Washington field office, sending emails designating the Hillary Clinton investigations as special, telling people to not engage in the normal investigative procedures and practices, but that instead there would be a, quote, small group at HQ, at headquarters, that would manage this investigation. Now, that alone is troubling, but when we provide the additional context, it becomes potentially criminal. Here's what worries us. You've got Loretta Lynch on the tarmac telling Bill Clinton, Lord knows what, in their one-on-one meeting. I don't think there are any Americans who think that they were talking about their grandkids at the time. Then you've got James Comey giving testimony that Loretta Lynch told him to call this a matter and not an investigation. Then you've got Comey ripping this case out of the hands of the Washington field office so that he can have total control over it. And then you have the revelation that James Comey said that he was writing the exoneration statement for Hillary Clinton before even conducting critical parts of the investigation, like interviewing Hillary Clinton herself. Here's what we've got to do. We've got to make sure that under the new leadership at the FBI, under Christopher Wray, we do not have this system where you got one track for the politicians and another track of justice for everyone else. We need to clean house at the FBI. We need to attack the deep state there that is unfortunately undermining the rule of law. And I think that will give the American people more confidence. So in the coming weeks, we expect a lot of developments. We expect to see some real action at the FBI from Christopher Wray. And we will have activity upcoming in the Judiciary Committee that will highlight our concerns over the rule of law.
All right. So here is where I think I've got to be honest, Congressman. At times I've felt like a lone voice in the wilderness, and media personalities and other competitive networks have said, well, why is Hannity talking about this? Because if we don't have equal justice under the law in this country, we don't have justice. We have a banana republic. The evidence is so overwhelming, so incontrovertible on major issues. And that would include the Uranium One deal. And we learned last night from John Solomon that the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation understated support from the firm that was hired by the Russian nuclear company. And by the way, it never made sense to give away, 20% of America's uranium when we have to import uranium because we don't have enough uranium. Then we've got the Russian dossier for a year they lied about, said they had nothing to do with. Now we know they funded Christopher Steele, Fusion GPS, to come up with Russian lies to influence the American people in an election. And it goes back to a simple abuse of power when 33,000 emails are deleted when they're subpoenaed by Congress. and then they use acid wash and bleach bit, and then they destroy these devices with a hammer. All of that would...
But Sean, Hillary says it's us. It's the Republicans who are abusing power by having the audacity to question the special treatment that she gets.
You know what? Why, if you subpoenaed Hannity documents and I deleted them, I suspect that I would be arrested and probably charged and maybe put in jail for a long time.
Well, you're absolutely right, but see, they're used to their own standard. You know, I'm an attorney. In the court of law, if you go and destroy evidence, there is a presumption that that evidence would be detrimental to the claims you are making. But see, the Clintons, they enjoy a presumption that they should be treated differently or special. And you're right, Sean, you have taken enormous criticism from the mainstream media over the fact that you've been pointing these things out. But as a consequence of the McCabe emails that have been released, we now have proof that you've been right all along. There can no longer be a dispute on the facts as to whether or not Hillary Clinton was treated differently. The FBI's own emails that they themselves released prove it. And so now we need to know why. And I think important for us moving forward, forgetting about Hillary Clinton for a moment, do we really want a system of laws in this country that treats the powerful, the politicians, the connected, differently than we would treat everyone else? And I think that that is the enduring virtue that we can bring to this process with transparency and by pointing out this double standard.
Why has there been this mysterious reluctance and resistance among some of the leadership in the House and Senate to even ask these questions, delve into these issues, when, as you rightly described, there's so much at stake as it relates to equal justice under the law?
We need more Republicans in particular to join our cause, to join Jim Jordan and Ron DeSantis and myself and 20 members of the Judiciary Committee who have demanded a special counsel for 4 months now to look into these matters relating to Hillary Clinton. And I think that there are establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans who just think that it's untawdry to be critical of the Clintons anymore, that, you know, well, they lost and they're really the past and we shouldn't really focus on these things. And it's kind of the country club Republicans that feel that way. And my assessment is that the rule of law matters every day to every American, and we all need to be joined to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Have you had any discussions with leadership like Ryan or McCarthy or any of these guys?
I have. I stood up at conference and I said we have legislation that puts the House of Representatives on record calling for a special counsel. It could be put on the floor any day. It has been passed out of the Judiciary Committee already as an amendment, and we could have it on the floor. And I asked the Speaker and I asked the leader to put it on the floor, and they very politely nodded when I made my request.
But they didn't do it.
Did not.
All right, got to take a break. We will come back. We'll continue with Matt Gaetz. He is a Florida congressman digging deep now into the things that we have been discussing. As I've been telling you, it's now beginning to cascade down. And it's going to happen very, very fast, probably as soon as next week. All right, as we continue with Matt Gaetz, he is a congressman from the state of Florida. All these now Hillary controversies that we have been staying on and keeping alive now coming to fruition. We've not been on the wrong course. We've been on the right course. So let's talk about what you think is coming out next week. I know you remain troubled regarding the FBI's treatment of the president both before and after his election. Do you feel that there has been an illegal, unwarranted, let's say, surveillance of President Trump? And is it possible the Fusion GPS dossier, which has been proven false with their salacious material, was used as a method of getting a FISA warrant or any other warrant?
Well, Jim Jordan and Ron DeSantis and I asked that question directly to Jeff Sessions. We said, did the FBI work in concert or commingle funds or provide a reimbursement with the Democratic Party for opposition research that was then used as a basis to spy on Americans? And the answer was, we can't tell you. That is unacceptable, Sean. The American people have a right to know whether their tax dollars were used both before and after this election to undermine President Trump. and I do not accept that that's information that the deep state can keep from the American people. Next week, my expectation is we may have Christopher Wray before the Judiciary Committee. We'll have the opportunity to ask the FBI these questions directly. And here's the hint I can give you as to what I think may be coming next week. The FBI released these emails about Deputy Director McCabe on purpose. These weren't leaks. They released it on purpose. And so what motivation would Christopher Wray have to out these improper admissions by the FBI? I think Christopher Wray wants to clean house. I think he wants to be a good FBI director and execute the Trump agenda, and we may see some real action next week toward that end.
That's going to be fascinating to watch in every aspect of this. So you think this was done on purpose as a preemptive measure in the hopes of cleaning up the FBI. I want to ask you about Jeff Sessions real quick before I have to let you go. Look, I've known Jeff Sessions for years. I've always been a fan of his, and I am beyond puzzled at what the heck he's doing over there as the Attorney General.
He was a phenomenal U.S. Senator. As Attorney General on free speech issues, on immigration issues, he's done a great job. But there is something about the Clintons, about the Russia investigation, where we've needed Jeff Sessions to show leadership, and he's been very reticent to show that leadership. I mean, with all of the facts that you've detailed on your show, with all of the facts that we've seen in documents from the FBI, why in the world do we not have a special counsel investigating Hillary Clinton? There's way more evidence for her collusion with foreign entities than there is with Donald Trump, but yet we subject Donald Trump to this just egregious standard of scrutiny that the Clintons have never faced. And so I'm frustrated with Jeff Sessions, and Jim Jordan and I have said very clearly, Jeff Sessions needs to appoint a special counsel to look into these matters with Hillary Clinton, or he needs to step aside as the Attorney General so that we can find somebody who will really enforce the rule of law.
I totally agree with all of that. Really appreciate you being with us. 800-941-SEAN is our number.